Hey guys, this is Paulo with Meditation Amsterdam. And before I kick off today's video, I wanted to welcome all the new joiners who just subscribed to the channel after the last video about catastrophizing. I didn't expect the topic to be that appealing, to be honest. It was coming from this, not so much Jungian notion, but more of a Jungian attitude of seeing every apparent pathology of the mind as a kind of attempt at healing itself or balancing itself out. So that was the main gist of the video. And I was surprised by the number of people who ended up subscribing to the channel with only a handful of views. It was pretty off the charts, actually. So welcome to the channel. Hope you enjoy the content here. In today's video, I want to talk about a topic that came up while doing a couple of sessions this week. And it's to do with this notion of how what is required of us as we progress in the spiritual path is to progressively acquaint ourselves with a sort of bare naked contact with our sensory perception of the here and now. And hence the title of the video of spirituality being a contact sport. It's interesting as a topic because this week coincidentally, there's been a few videos in the YouTube sphere going around about how certain people have become completely disenchanted with non-duality because it landed them in a sort of depersonalized, derealized state of mind. A very unhealthy and very eerie and scary place to be with your mind. I can't say that I've gone into deep depersonalization, but in some of my first videos, I recounted the experience I had after a 10-day Vipassana retreat after all my problems were gone, but so was I, and I didn't like it one bit. It was a very eerie space. It did not feel wholesome at all, actually. And there's been, in the meantime, people coming in defense of spirituality saying that if you do it right, if you follow correct advice and correct methods, that actually spirituality leads you to a place that is very much wholesome and happy, right? I happen to be in that camp, as a matter of fact. And the reason I emphasize contact is because, as you may have seen if you've been following the channel for a while, I am a extremely heavy advocate of grounding and embodiment techniques. Not just the techniques, but cultivation practices that make sure that your awareness is deeply interpenetrating the body. If not consciously at all times, at least progressively so over time. I'm also a big proponent of embodiment as a tactic for ameliorating the effects both of trauma, anxiety episodes, and as a heavy and important support during trauma resolution practices. So what you could imagine is that you could go for the types of meditation practices that go into deep no self and the void and emptiness, or those kind of things. And if you only do that, it's almost certainly going to land you in a depersonalized space. There's going to be no self, but there's going to be no enjoyment either, and your mind is going to be confused as hell, most likely, because it loses all its bearings. Whereas if you practice some of that, and at the same time you are deeply in touch with the body and always grounding yourself in reality, both on a bodily level, but also on an activity level and on a societal level, always making sure that you try to become part of certain social hierarchies in which you can participate and interact with people. Those kind of things have also a certain grounding effect, keeping you grounded in social, human, and embodied reality. One of the things that came up during these sessions is very often we are confronted with the challenge of trying to go deeper into our own center, or trying to feel ourselves more directly and more clearly, and sort of bouncing off, like you can't really get there. And an analogy that worked well while discussing that topic was sort of the analogy of a membrane. It seems to me, in my current stage of cultivation, that the ego is a kind of psychosomatic membrane that is there to prevent the shrill and bitey direct contact with bare bones reality, because it's a hell of a thing. It's very intense. It's very, very intense to take that in directly. And now we can train our nervous system to little by little go into discomfort, especially somatic or emotional, somatic emotional discomfort, typically presenting itself around the chest, the throat, solar plexus. And we can find ways to stay in the zone of discomfort that is, kind of bearable, but still something is changing, because we are consciously sitting in that discomfort without trying to think it away or figure it out in a logical type of way. Also without trying to amp it up or smash through it or have a breakthrough, but also not backing away from it. But the space that is most skillful, which is to very lightly and very lovingly and with a lot of clear attention to touch the discomfort. I call that the Goldilocks zone of discomfort. Is when the fire is just right. If you're slow cooking something, like if you turn the fire up, you'll burn it. And if the fire is not high enough, it's not going to cook. But if the fire is just right, then a slow cooked meal can be quite a fantastic thing. So this is something similar. You stay in that space of transformation. Now that space is constantly moving. It's a dynamic space, because things are changing in your environment, and also emotional affects from memories and stored energy in your own system is coming up. So sometimes the things that happen around you, or the things that happen inside you, overwhelm your ability to stay in that Goldilocks space, and therefore you need to just kind of keep dancing with it all the time. But the main gist of it is that we can progressively train our nervous system to become acquainted both with the discomfort that we are not ready to feel, and with the membrane itself, the membrane that is separating us from feeling that discomfort. As far as I can tell, that membrane is made up of a mental component that has a kind of distracting effect, so that as soon as you're trying to get close to the discomfort, it either sends your attention elsewhere, and you'll start to try to think, and in this case catastrophizing becomes actually a not so useful type of movement of the mind. You may start to try to figure things out, or visualize or remember things about the situation, but in a way that is just distracting enough so that the direct contact with the emotion cannot be felt. So sending your attention elsewhere is one thing that your mind can do. The other one is to take the observer position. The fact that you can take the observer position so as not to be totally enmeshed and taken in by an emotion just gives you enough separation so that you can actually go fully back into that emotion and experience it completely. But if you insist on keeping the observer position, the emotion is not really being felt in the first person, and therefore the work is not really being done. So that's another thing that the mind can do. And then on the level of the body, the most clear indication that I can give, the clearest pointer that I've been coming across in my own experience, and funny enough, I heard a lecture last week that mentioned this, is the body will contract. And whilst there might be contractions in the forehead, the back of your neck, your shoulders, your chest, or whatever, the deepest and most entrenched contraction that I've been able to find in the body is in the diaphragm itself. In other words, you will alter the pattern, the softness, the continuity, and the relaxedness of your breath. Which means that if you want to go to the deepest and most direct source of bodily rejection of an emotion or a sensation, watch the tension under your rib cage and how you are trying to manipulate the breath to keep the emotion from coming up. It's almost as if the breath is trying to keep reality at bay. And as a matter of fact, it works. Okay, so if you alter your breath and you go like, you sort of, you don't take it all in a natural way, and you don't surrender as you exhale, then the emotion can't come up because you've kind of created a dam inside you to suppress that, to actively suppress that emotion. So it actually works. It just consumes a tremendous amount of energy and it keeps you stuck, right? And at some point, the energy starts to sip through and come out in all kinds of awkward ways and whatever. So you don't want to do this, essentially. But to let go is a hell of a scary thing. To let go of manipulating the breath and contracting as you inhale and exhale to just let something come up is very, very scary. It's just scary. So I wouldn't blame anyone for using this tactic. But if the tactic becomes, if you become aware of what your diaphragm and your breath is doing, and how you are suppressing things with your breath, once you become consciously aware of this mechanism, I dare say it has its days numbered, because you won't be able to help but start toying around with it and just to see what happens. If you have a bit of a curious mind and you're let's say compelled to heal, you feel that compelling call to purge all that energy that needs to come out. So once you progressively become able to not contract or manipulate the breath as difficult stuff is coming up, and not send your attention fishing for conceptual ideas about what's going on, and you are able to acquire the observer position, but then allow that observer to feel the emotion in first person, so to speak, to really be touched by the emotion as opposed to observing it from a distance. If you cultivate those qualities progressively over time, your system starts to become capable of having direct contact with reality, which is nothing other than having direct contact with bodily sensations in their own right, because your body is your contact vehicle towards reality. So what you're really making contact with is with your own body, and especially parts of the body that were severed during traumatic episodes, including birth, by the way, which is something that I'm really getting into now. So this whole perinatal trauma in the several stages of birth seems to have an enormous effect in how we process things later in life. So it's a re-entrainment of the body to so that it learns to feel itself and all its energetic affects in a way that is healthy and wholesome, and which has an enormous potential for healing if you train yourself to do that. Meaning that spirituality at the end of the day is a contact sport. It is all about making contact. It's a re-entry into the body, as I've said several times before, as opposed to learning how to float above things, which is a misunderstanding and would land anyone in a really ineffective and stupid place, actually. But it comes from an attempt of using spiritual tactics to fuel avoidance as opposed to contact, which is precisely the point of this video. So that's my thoughts on this particular topic. And if you guys have thoughts that you would like to share, or things that you that come up in your mind as you watch any of this stuff, then do share it in the content and comment section. I'll be back with more videos pretty soon. Do share these if you think that the content can help others. It makes the channel more visible, and it's also very motivating to me. So thanks. I'll be back with another video pretty soon. Cheerio. Bye-bye.